Hi, Mary. I see you. I'm just going to, excuse me, I'm just going to give a minute or two for some more folks to jump on. Welcome, welcome. Just going to give a minute or two to allow some folks to jump on with us. Happy Thursday. Happy almost Friday. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and then we'll let folks in. Let me see if I can adjust my... Hi, everyone. My name is Yasmin Arrington, aka YazzieSpeaks, and I am a Juvenile Justice Fellow at the Center for Public Justice. I am also your host for CPJ's IG Live series on juvenile probation transformation or reform. The Center for Public Justice, CPJ, is a national, nonpartisan Christian public policy and civic engagement organization. Our mission is to equip citizens, develop leaders, and shape policy in pursuit of our purpose to serve God, advance justice, and transform public life. CPJ works on a variety of public policy issues, including criminal and juvenile or youth justice reform. As a part of this work over the last 3 years, CPJ has identified juvenile justice and juvenile probation reform as a policy reform priority. Within our juvenile probation reform priority work, we have brought together over 100 faith and community leaders and organizations thus far via virtual convenings to educate and inform them about juvenile probation reform efforts and credible messenger programs, and offer very practical ways in which they can get involved in juvenile probation reform work within their own communities. CPJ believes that faith-based organizations are critical to this work, and CPJ is invested in inspiring and equipping such institutions to be a part of transforming juvenile probation reform. For this CPJ IG Live series and upcoming virtual convening, we are honing in and highlighting the stories, perspectives, and voices of both faith and community leaders who are doing impactful diversion work with youth across the country. Diversion, or the act of diverting, simply put, is providing opportunities for youth to have alternatives to experiencing the embarrassment and criminalization of court trials, incarceration, and probation, and also providing direct services such as mental health supports, mentoring, and job training opportunities to youth and their families to help youth positively change the trajectory of their lives. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, our esteemed guest is Miss Mary Hall. Mary is the program coordinator, violence intervention program, is the program coordinator at the Connecticut Violence Intervention Program based in New Haven, Connecticut. Mary's role is to coordinate and oversee CTVIP's Hamden programs, the Hamden Juvenile Review Board, and their Hamden Violence Prevention Program. So without further ado, I'm so excited. I'm going to bring you on the screen now, Mary. Let me see. I just have to remember how to invite you on. 1 second. Okay. Here we go. All right, I just sent you an invite, so you should see that.
Hey,
Ah, Mary!
just my picture a little bit here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited to have you.
Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hold on, I'm trying to My angle today is a little different, but that's
No, I
okay.
feel like mine is a little crazy too. Let me just.
No, you look great. A little blurry.
Is it?
Yeah, just a little bit, but not
Think
much.
my phone is dirty? Should I?
It could just be the internet.
Oh, is that any better?
Yes, yes, that's better. How are
Uh,
you doing today, Mary?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Chugging along.
I hear you on that. Thank you so much for joining us. This is really exciting. I'm excited to speak with you. So, Mary, can you please tell us about yourself? Tell us some of your story, and just like a summary of the work that you do at CTVIP.
Sure. So my story is very long, so I'm going to keep it very short, or try to keep it as short as possible. Um, you know, um, my story is important because it really led me to the work that I do. I don't want to jump too ahead in the questions, but I was born into like a privileged situation. I don't want to make it sound like I'm feeling sorry for myself or anything like that, but I was a child that struggled immensely in school. I was never I was either finding my way into some mischief at school or not doing well grade wise. And that really affected my self-esteem early on. Like early on, I kind of understood that I wasn't the popular one. I wasn't the, straight A student or even like straight B student. I was lucky to just get by. Um, and, I was constantly like being sent to a principal's office or, somewhere for some little antic that I had done. And come to find out now, I back then ADHD wasn't a thing, but at that time you were just like a mess up kid if you exhibited those symptoms. These days, it would have been treated like completely differently, than it was then. So basically, that the reason why I bring this up is just because I feel like that kind of set the trajectory of like my early life, by the time I reached like being a preteen, I was already like starting to try to meet people that weren't necessarily the people that were doing the right thing. I started to really kind of veer towards people that were like me, that got into trouble, that didn't do well in school, things of that nature. And that only like intensified as I got to be a teenager. um, I went to public high school in New Haven. You know the first month of my sophomore year, I decided I didn't want to go to school anymore. And I basically just stopped going. I just stopped going to school, and my mom like begged and pleaded, but by that point she had already realized, and we're talking about like the first month of my sophomore year, so I was pretty young. But my mom had already kind of, I don't want to say that my mom has never thrown in the towel at me, so I don't want to say that, but it became apparent to her that she could not get me to do what I didn't want to do. I did not want to go to school, so, and she couldn't force me to go. Like she by that point I was already beyond her control. I was going to New York, I was here in this state, driving here, there, everywhere, hanging out with God knows who. And so I dropped out of school. And though, luckily, to my mother's credit, she said, okay, if you're going to drop out of school, you're going to get your GED. I'm not going to just like let you drop out of school and like do nothing with your life, or do nothing without any, because she realized I wouldn't be able to get a job without at least a GED. And my parents were academics. They were like, the idea of me just having a GED was like, you know not a good thought, but they were just my mom was trying to kind of salvage the best she could of, my decision making or whatever. So she had me get my GED. I passed the GED. And, again, I'm continuing to hang out with kind of wrong people, uh, you know, doing some drugs, just really unfocused and really kind of feeling like, okay, I'm not going to fit into this like mainstream of what my parents want. I'm not going to fit into you know, I'm not going to be on like the top tier. So I'm just going to, now I'm just going to do whatever, you know? So, you know, I got into trouble. I got arrested multiple times, you know, was in, you know, central booking in New York City when I was 15 years old with all adults. It was, it was crazy. When I think now as an adult with children at the situations that I was in, it's just like crazy to think about. And basically, like, it's a progression, you know, like finally at around, you know, 21 years old, I realized I wanted to get my life together because I was sick of working these like low end jobs. And I started going to Gateway Community College part time. Um, and you know, again, I'm realizing that I want to change, but the progression is slow. And you know, I started going to Gateway, and then the summer, you know, Gateway edited that summer. I went to California, and I got arrested in California. And by that point, and it was like a, you know, it was um, a serious charge that I wasn't just going to get bail. You know, I wasn't just, my mom couldn't just bail me out. You know, it was, I needed a lawyer and I needed bail money, a substantial amount of bail money that my mother didn't have. So at that point, like I really had to like sit in jail, like real jail. You know, granted, it was only 2 weeks, but it made me realize like, no, I do not want to be in prison. I'm not like made for prison, you know? Like I don't think anyone's made for prison, but this was not where I wanted to be. So, you know, I did eventually get out. Eventually, you know, I got a lawyer, and that lawyer had me plead out, you know, to a felony charge, which now I never would have. With what I know legally now, I would have never done that. But I just wanted to get out of the state, so I go back home. I ended up, you know, getting my credits at Gateway, and then going on to John Jay College of Criminal Justice. So I moved to New York. I kind of stopped hanging out with like the bad crowd. But I'm bartending and I'm like living kind of like a party girl lifestyle. You know, really just focusing on the wrong things, like really, really absorbed with how I look because I had to look a certain way in order to work at this place. I had to be tan all the time. I had to have my hair done, my nails done. All I cared about was like how I looked and like, you know, making it to class and like barely on time because I'd work until 5 o'clock in the morning. And, but I will say, when I entered John Jay, like that was the first time that like professors were like, oh my God, like they were like, I was treated like I had like great ideas, and it really boosted my self-esteem at that time. I kind of had like a shallow self-esteem. It was all about like how I looked. It wasn't really about anything internal. So I was doing bottle service, bartending. I graduated from John Jay. And I decided, you know, based on like some, like, you know, the showering of confidence that I was getting from my professors, that I was going to go to law school, or that's what I wanted to attempt to do. So as I'm, you know, when I'm graduating, the the dean, you meet with like a dean. I can't remember exactly how it all went, but he, you know, I told him about my past, and he was like, "Listen, Mary, like, I wouldn't go that direction. Like, you could go to law school, you could like do everything you're doing, and then when it's time to get into the bar, they're gonna ask you to explain each one of your arrests that you've ever had. Not, it's not about convictions, it's about arrests. Oh, and to point out, by that point, I had gotten my record expunged. Like that year, I think the year I graduated, I got my record expunged. But he's like, listen, it doesn't matter. They're gonna make you explain each arrest. Like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like each arrest, I have a lot of arrests. Like they're for stupid things. Not all of them I was, you know, got charges from, but you know, this is, it's not gonna look good. He's like, yeah, people, even if they get arrested protesting, like that can affect. I'm like, protesting, like I wasn't protesting, you know what I mean? Each of my arrests, I definitely wasn't protesting. Like, so that kind of like really like broke my heart, like destroyed me, like because I was like, I've come all this way, and I left out a lot of the story because it's just too long. But I've come all this way. Like now I'm in my late 20s. Like you're telling me that, you know, I can't, I changed. Like, what do you mean? And, you know, I changed to a point, but there was more changing that I needed to do. So I went home. I continued to bartend. I had an opportunity at a job, like in an office, making like a pretty decent amount of money, but nothing like amounted to the money I was making doing bottle service and bartending. Not only that, but it afforded me to have this lifestyle and get this like fake like confidence. You know what I mean? Like so much attention. I'm like, wait, I'm gonna be working in an office, sitting at a desk, making like $40,000 a year. Like it just it didn't strike me as something I wanted to do at that time. So I moved back home to Connecticut. I continued bartending, and um, I don't know if you want me to go into this part yet, like because I saw one of the questions kind of relates to it,
No,
but
go going.
all
Yes.
right. So I got into, I went to a party one night that I wasn't working, and with some people, you know, with some people that I had met at the bar that I worked at. And I had like a few drinks. I felt fine. And I got into my car, and I left early. Like in my mind, like considering like all the risks and like bad choices that I'd made before at that time, it seemed like I was making like a good decision. I'd only had a few drinks. You know, this is my rationale. I'd only had a few drinks. You know, I'm leaving early because I have something to do. I'm going out on a boat, so I want to look. It's not about my safety or you know I should get home to be responsible. It's about I want to look good the next day on the boat that I'm going on. So I'm gonna leave the party early, and you know I drove the back way home. And after like 10 minutes of being in the car, I don't remember anything after that. I crashed my car into a tree. You know, next thing I remember, I don't remember the crash. I just remember waking up in the hospital. And my first question, I knew that my leg was damaged. So most of the damage was done to my leg, and they thought that I was going to lose my like part of my leg. And my first question was, "Oh, so I'm not going to be able to wear heels anymore?"
Like, what do you mean?
But that shows like my thinking at that time, you know, like that was the biggest concern, you know. So because of the extent of the damage to my ankle, it sounds like it's just the ankle, but like there was artery damage. Like a major operation had to be done that wouldn't upset the bone damage and wouldn't upset the artery damage. So anyway, I had to sit in the hospital for a month just while they were planning the operation. um and then they did the operation, and I had to recover for like another 3 weeks before they let me go home. So I was in the hospital for like 2 months, and it was the first time in my life that like my kind of my wings were clipped. You know what I mean? Like I had to really sit there and like think about like the bad choices that I made, like everything, all the traumas that I'd endured over like the course of, you know, my life. And like, you know, really kind of thought about how I was taking, like, I guess in my mind, when I got the answer saying, like, okay, you can't, you know, law school might not work, you might not become a lawyer, my thinking was, you know, well, oh, you know, like now I'm just gonna be bad. Like now I'm just gonna, you know, misbehave, or, you know, like I'm getting back at somebody. When really, like, and I did that like progressively through my life, you know, like I only got back at myself. I didn't hurt anyone else but myself by having that kind of like, you know, self-destructive like behavior. So anyway, all this reflection that I had for those 2 months, and then the recovery afterwards at my house, which was long. I really think like it really made me realize like how lucky we are to be able to move around. You know what I mean? Like really made me start thinking about how grateful I should be, like just to be able to move, you know? And so I started thinking about the fact that like I can't change my past. I can't change like the series of like awful decisions that I'd made, or, you know, I couldn't change the traumas. I couldn't change any of those things. but I could, try to change someone else's choices early on in, their life. So I decide that I want to work with young people. But great, that's nice that you decide to do that, but you don't have any experience working with young people. Your degrees don't reflect, a major that of someone that is trained to work with young people. So I really had to start like at ground zero. And, I found a youth organization in New Haven that I could do volunteering with. I was lucky and blessed at the time to be living at my mother's house. And she supported me while I was doing all of this. I volunteered, I worked for free. I basically had no money in my pocket, but I was so like that situation with the accident, like really, like you said in, epiphany, and that's exactly what it was. It was like a real
Originally, I repeated back to you what you told me. Yeah, that's very deep. That
yeah.
um
I didn't care about like the material stuff anymore. I didn't care about a Louis V bag or like, all of those things I didn't care about. And so I volunteered for free, which led me to meet somebody that worked as a street outreach worker for another organization. And I was really like blown away. I'd watched a movie called The Interrupters, which is, a documentary about street outreach workers in Chicago. And I was like really inspired by that. And so he brought me to meet the director of that or the director of that program at the organization. And I asked her if I could volunteer. And so I volunteered for 6 months for free. And a position opened up as the case manager for the Juvenile Review Board. And it was the case manager for the Hammond Juvenile Review Board. And I applied for it, and luckily I got it. And, I worked for that organization for probably 8 years, I want to say. Um, and, I then stopped for a brief amount of time and then started working for CTVIP and became program coordinator of both the Hamden JRB and the violence prevention program. I had, had a relationship with CTVIP like since before its inception. Many of the workers at CTVIP also worked for the organization that I first started at. So I'm, familiar with the director, familiar with many of the street outreach workers, and, it was a real blessing. It's where I wanted to be the whole time. Like since CTVIP started, I wanted to be part of the organization. So it's truly a blessing. Was
thank
that
you.
short enough? I tried.
Oh, amazing. Thank you, Mary, for
Nope.
taking through some of your personal story and journey. And there was so much, like so much richness in your story. I just want to first of all honor you and thank you for your courageousness and your bravery and sharing all of that. um i I think it's just amazing how you ended up where you are now. And you didn't, even though you had this very tragic, literally life-changing moment, and some disappointments also in your life, especially, where you finally got to the place where you were really excited about being in the classroom. And like you said, like you felt like at John Jay College, this was the first time you felt like you were really being seen, and that you had great ideas. And um, you know and you were thinking, okay, I'd love to go to law school. And then all of a sudden, I guess for lack of a better term, your past is, in I guess in the systems that we're in,
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of barriers to law school, to becoming a lawyer. And so you learn that, okay, well, whether or not your record is expunged, they're going to ask you about your history and expect you to explain it. And I'm sure that kind of either cause some type of disappointment or discouragement, and then you find yourself in this sort of tragic situation, like kind of, I guess, maybe flashing before your eyes, and then you could have made a decision to just keep living and going on, but you were like, okay, I this is not what I want something different. And you mentioned how you realized how fortunate we are to have movement, like to be able to just move around. And you went to volunteering. I mean, it was really a 180 for you. And the great thing, that what I love so much, is that I'm sure beyond the shadow of a doubt that a lot of the young people that you have been advocating for and working with over these several or many years, that they too have had similar experiences that you've had. And so I imagine that, of course, you're able to speak to that to them, and kind of encourage them, or help to, for lack of a better term, stir them away from going down, like as you mentioned, like a destructive path, or a path where you already know where it's going. Like, look, I'm gonna just let you know. But anyway, so on that note, uh, can you explain? Can you get a little bit more into, Mary, the like explain to us what the juvenile review board is, and also what kind of work were you doing there, or and even still, I know you still are involved, and then also share about the work that you're doing at CTVIP, and I know you're running sort of two different programs.
Yes. So the juvenile review board is kind of like, it's common. There are juvenile review boards all over the country. I think, they're not all run exactly the same, but the general idea is kind of, the fact that it's based on restorative justice, which is not, it's not a punishment based program. Um, it basically tries to teach kids, that one decision can harm multiple people, including themselves, and really help them learn from some of the decisions and mistakes that they're making. Um, the way the Juvenile Review Board works is that we receive referrals from the police, the court, the schools, and the community. So the true diversion is when we get referrals from the police and the court. And we receive a referral, we set up an intake, and we meet with the client and the parent, and we have them, we ask them a bunch of questions. We do a mental health, we use Ohio scales, which is, just to check in on their mental health. And we have them fill out paperwork and sign paperwork and just make sure, especially in the court and police referrals, that they want to work with us versus going to court. And then they attend the JRB panel, and the JRB panel is like the centerpiece of the program. Basically, we it's made up of volunteers who, from all walks of life. As long as you're a law-abiding citizen, you can be part of the JRB panel. They're all trained in restorative justice, and we welcome really anybody. We have several police officers who sit on the juvenile review board, as long as, as well as like a DCF worker, a basketball coach. We have like a bunch of different people. Um, and,
And volunteers, right?
yeah, so it's all volunteer. So when they are at the panel, when the youth attends the panel with their parent, they introduce themselves as community volunteers. They don't tell their name or like who they are, what they do. When the police officers, participate, they're in plain clothes. They don't know that it's a police officer. We're very, big on confidentiality. Nothing that is said in the panel goes anywhere. Nothing can be used against them, like that they say in the panel. And so the first part of the panel is kind of question answer. The panel members ask the client, like, what happened, what brought them to the JRB. We look at a case summary that the case manager or myself writes up. which just has very basic, facts of what happened and, some background information on the client. Um, and they ask what happened, they ask why it happened, questions surrounding the circumstances. They ask who was harmed. Um, they ask what the client enjoys doing, what they may want to be when they grow up, how they're doing in school, things like that. And then after that question answer portion, we move into deliberations. And at that time, the parent and the client just kind of sit back and watch. They're not really supposed to participate unless we have a question for them at that point. And we come up with some recommendations, which we write down. And at the end of our deliberations, we read the recommendations back to the parent and the child. Some of those recommendations might be, depending on what they say, attend therapy, uh, do a career exploration, write an apology letter, get involved in a pro-social activity, things of that nature. But it's all narrowly tailored to that client. And then the case manager. So then, after the panel, for the next 3 to 6 months, the case manager or myself will work with that client to meet those recommendations. And once those recommendations are met, it's if it's a court or a police referral, it's like the offense never happened. Now with the school referrals, we take those as well. Those are really for kids that are having difficult behaviors in school or need extra support. And it's the same process really, but for them it's really voluntary. Like there's no in the case of police or court, if they don't do the JRB, then their case is going to go to court. In the case of the school, there's no there's not really anything that goes along with them not doing it. It's really by choice. But even though that's the case, like I would say 99% of the time we can encourage a parent and a child to take part in the program.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much for breaking that down. I think at least even though I haven't physically been in that space, it really does sound as though the juvenile review board is truly is a form of restorative justice or restorative justice practice for young people and their families. Um, what else? Okay, so CTVIP. Can you break down, Mary, what your role is at the organization? And I know there are two different programs or age categories that y'all work with, and some of the services and programs supports that you provide to the young people that you work with.
Absolutely. So CTVIP was really we started as an organization that did strictly violence prevention. We really targeted, the organization really targeted like the most at risk kids, like the kids highest risk, either shooters or, possible targets of violence, stealing cars, doing like the most risky behaviors. Kids that most organizations didn't want to work with or couldn't work with, couldn't engage because the youth wouldn't engage with them. And so basically we have, so there's a New Haven, uh, violence prevention program, and then also a Hamden one. The New Haven one is really like the heart, Hamden is kind of like the branch off, and we're growing. We're gonna hopefully get as big as New Haven, but New Haven has about, I would say 10. I don't know. My boss is gonna kill me, but I would say probably 6 to 10 VPPs, and they're made up of the VPPs. Most of them have lived have stories themselves. You know what I mean? Everybody has.
You define for us that stands for, VPP.
Sure, violence prevention professional.
Got
Um,
you. So
you
they're
know, a
sort
couple,
of also credible messengers, essentially.
right.
Okay, got you.
A couple of our guys have, like, done long stretches in prison, and like really have a very powerful message to share, because they've been where, we're trying to prevent our kids from going. Not just 10 years, not just 5 years, not just 15 years, like 25 years. Their message is so powerful. Like, to hear them speak, like, I've heard them speak so many times that I'm blown away every time I hear their story. Another VPP of ours, was shot, and they all have a story. One went to federal prison. They all have, like, really powerful stories. um and yeah, the VPPs are different from the JRB in many ways, but the main way is because the target, the level of risk of the clients that they work with. And the VPPs mentor. They do a lot of mentoring. They do case management. um, but they do a lot of mentoring, in comparison to the JRB. The JRB is a lot more case management, whereas the VPP program is a lot more mentoring. Um, and it's the same way it works in New Haven. It works in Hamden.
And which office are you based in?
So I'm in Hamden.
Okay, Hamden.
Yeah. So I
Right.
run Hamden JRB, and also the violence prevention in Hamden. And we have, I take VPP clients, and so does one other VPP, who's also in Hamden. And then we have a JRB case manager. So, the juvenile review board, we're really trying to prevent kids from reaching the point to where they're a VPP client. You know what I mean? Like, that's, I think, one of the main reasons that myself and Leonard Jihad, our executive director, we were excited for the JRB, because, like, it's really preventative. It's the preventative work that needs to be done. And one thing that we always say is, like, all kids are at risk. We always, people say, like, oh, we work with high risk youth. Really, right now in this day and age, all youth are at risk, not just one particular group. Um, so, I'm really proud of the work that the agency does. I think it's, you know, there needs to be more of it. I wish we were bigger so we could, do the whole Connecticut, but hopefully we'll get there.
Oh, no doubt in my mind. This is a side question. Do you know? Have you heard the name, or are you familiar with Mr. Aquil Crooks?
No, no.
Okay. Have you heard? What is the program? It's in Connecticut, but I realize there are different neighborhoods, different programs. Riot Sap, Street Safe.
I'm not familiar. I'm not
Oh,
familiar. Say it again. What
okay.
is
Raya Sap. It's an acronym for a program in Connecticut. I can't remember what community, but I'll send it to you. I was
Yeah,
just
let me know. I'm sure either, my program manager or executive director Jihad would be familiar, but I'm not.
absolutely, yeah, they do a lot of similar work that you all do, and Aquil. So I'll be interviewing him next week, and he also has been on the I don't know if he's still active, but the juvenile review board. But is there more than one, like, throughout Connecticut, or is
Yeah,
there just?
there's a lot. Like, every town, town
Oh,
has, well, I won't say every town, but all the major cities have a juvenile review board. Many of them are run through youth service bureaus. Um, some have organizations, like, so the town, contracts with us to run their JRB. And that's what most of the larger cities do, is contract with the agency to run the JRB.
I got you. Okay, that's helpful to know in terms of structure. Mary, about how many youth do you all in Hampton CTVIP? About how many youth do you all serve annually, and what are some of the, in addition or within the mentoring that is provided by the BPPs? Is there, can you give an example of, because I remember you mentioning that you all have a summer camp, but can you just mention some of the programs and things also, or workshops or services and things you provide to the youth?
Absolutely. So, wait, I'm sorry. Tell me the first part of the question
Yes,
again.
I'm sorry.
That's
Oh,
okay. I just got caught on the second one.
no worries. I was just asking about how many youth do you serve
Oh, yeah.
roughly, like at Hampton?
Yes. So, so contractually, in the past, the number was 65. You know, in the contract is what we needed to serve every year. Now it's up to 75. A major part of the reason why they raised it is because we were serving many more than 65 per year, and continue to do that. We don't have a cap, so like once we reach our contractual like number, we don't say, okay, no, we're not serving any more kids. I don't think we've ever turned away, you know, a referral because you know, we had too many. We really put in a lot of work, you know, to serve every youth. And we also, you know, serve kids that aren't even necessarily JRB clients. You know, if a kid needs help in the community and they come to me, I'm going to help them, whether they're a client or not. Um, so yeah, and in terms of activities and services, we are running a summer camp, a free basketball camp this summer. You know, it's about to come to an end next week, but it's been really successful. I think the kids have really enjoyed it. And that's for, you know, younger kids. It wasn't just for our clients. It was open to the whole community. Um, and like the purpose behind that again is like prevention and getting to know kids in the community. I had done something, you know, at a much smaller scale, for you know, years ago, and for a series of years, and I got to know a ton of kids that way who are now, you know, much older. But I see the value in doing that kind of community service, so to speak, and doing camps and open gyms and things of that nature, because it's important to know the kids, or else you're not going to be effective at this job.
Absolutely. We got a question. I, from, I think I'm saying this correct. Jack Nan 92. What's it like working at CTVIP?
I mean, it's great. It's excellent. It's really like a big family, and everybody comes from, you know, everybody has a story. So you know, it's awesome, and it's awesome to be able to you know, seek the support of your you know, fellow workers, because this work is difficult, it is challenging, and there aren't many people that do it. So you know, and again, I feel like I'm skipping ahead to another question, but you know, like it's hard to find someone that understands like the type of work that we do and the trauma and challenges that and stress that comes with it. So, you know, it's great to work for an organization that, you know, is, you know, so much like a family and like so supportive of one another. Um, in terms of like what it's like to work for CTVIP, like doing the work, it's excellent. It's oh, hi. I know who this is. This is this is this is Jihad's daughter. Hey,
Oh
not
my goodness! What? Hi, Jahad's daughter.
yeah, Nandi. So, you know, the work is. I love doing the work. It is challenging. It is hard. It is, you know, stressful. We do sometimes overwork ourselves, but that's because like this work is so important, and it's worth it.
That's beautiful, Mary. Do you all? I imagine in the work that you're doing. I mean, you're embedded within the community, and uh, do you all partner ever partner with excuse me sorry, either have you all ever partnered with a local church or a faith-based organization or even people within the community to help provide different services and supports to the you know, whether it's like summer camp or just regular, and also programming during a school year and things like that?
Yeah, so I mean, we have relationships, especially in New Haven. You know, there's tons of churches in both communities, I would say. But we partner with New Haven churches when they ask us to come speak and do, like, you know, a speaking engagement or do work. um, you know, we always do. And, you know, our team is from like a diverse religious background. We have people like myself who are like mainly just like spiritual, not really like any, you know, not really involved in any religious group. Then we have, you know, some of our VPPs go to church every Sunday, and then, you know, Leonard Jihad is you know, studies Islam. He's Muslim. So like we really you know, we really do reach out to, you know, and are willing to partner with any, you know, religious organization or leadership that wants to partner with us.
That's awesome, and that's amazing that the sounds like the staff and VPPs are very. It's a very diverse group, which is great because it allows for exchange of different, you know, different mindsets, different backgrounds, ideas, and can relate, you know, to the young people you serve. It's cool to know that you all partner with churches too. CPJ is really big. It's a faith-based organization, so you know, we CPJ, we like to hear that there are still churches and congregations out there that are, you know, partnering with organizations who are really boots on the ground, you know,
Right.
doing the, or offering their, you know, maybe a space for activities or things like that. Let's see. I know we don't have maybe just a few minutes. I'm curious to know because you sort of touched on this a little bit, but feel free to talk about it a little bit more, Mary. I'm curious. What's the what's one of the most rewarding parts of the work that you do, but what are also, you know, maybe one or a couple of the challenges? I don't want to, you know, say too much. I don't want to steal the thunder, as they say, but you know, you have mentioned that sometimes, unfortunately, you know, sometimes you all lose youth to gun violence or things like that. So if you could just share some of, or maybe we do it in reverse. Maybe we talk about maybe a few of a couple of the challenges in this work, and then maybe what's one or two of the most rewarding things about your work.
Sure. So I would say the challenges are, you know, having a youth that just refuses um, to want to better themselves, you know, or like, you know, you're offering all these opportunities and they're not interested. Um, or, you know, you have a youth that's like doing really well and then they slip back into their old ways. It's really difficult. But I mean, as somebody that like, you know, I've been through nothing compared to a lot of my clients. So I don't want to make it seem like, you know, I'm like a poor soul over here. But I do understand that like this is a process. Like change is a process. You don't just like all of a sudden, especially when you're like deep into the street life, like many of our clients are, say, okay, I'm changing today and that's it. Like, you know, especially when they're living in the midst of it, you know what I mean? Like this isn't a 1 2 3 overnight thing. Lots of times clients have to bump their head um, multiple times before they get it, you know. And I think it can be really frustrating to be the violence prevention professional or the case manager when you're you know, when you're watching the struggle. But I think we understand that. And I mean, another challenge is of this work is, you know, we do lose clients. We do have clients that get, you know, that are victims of gun violence, and you know, we get attached to our clients. You know, part of what we do is like we don't walk in with this like clinical like wall in front of us and like this huge professional wall in front of us. Like, in order for us to engage our clients and be effective in this violence prevention work, we have to kind of be ourselves, which is effective, but it also can make you emotional, you know, when you have a loss.
Absolutely. And is there uh, the CTVIP offer any, I don't know, like time, maybe time off or a time, you know, to grieve or any like therapeutic services, anything to help you all, for lack of a better term, cope or grieve when you've lost a client?
Absolutely. I mean, we're given, you know, self care is like a really big priority to the agency. We're given one mental health day a month off. That's separate from our PTO. Um, and also, like when tragedy strikes, or we do have a loss and we do need to grieve, or you know something's happened, or you know we there was a time prior to when I joined that you know an 8-year-old boy had you know gotten a hold of a gun, or like his sister had gotten a hold of his gun and by mistake shot and killed him. And like the staff, you know, was there at the hospital and was like extremely distraught by this. You know, the younger, the more innocent, you know, it's just they were very upset, very, very, very upset. And Leonard Jihad had the Yale, I think it's called the Yale Crisis Response Team. That's what it is. The Yale Crisis Response Team came in and, you know, met with our staff, and, you know, just helped them get through what they had, you know, seen, and what they had, you know, seen at the hospital, which was really heartbreaking. So, but beyond that, we also have a clinician who, you know, is on call that can come in and speak to us anytime that we're, you know, struggling with something, due to the work. um, and yeah, and also like the team rallies around one another, because like I mentioned earlier, like this work is unique, um, and we know what each other is going through, so you know who best to try to help.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Mary. And what is the most rewarding part of your work?
So I mean, I think the most rewarding part of the work is like seeing you know, seeing progress, like even the little progress, even like the small things, like even, you know, having a client be proud of themselves because they like, you know, actually realize they can make it to a job on time. You know, they can get themselves into school after, you know, not being in school for like almost a year. They can be that go-getter. They can do this. Like just seeing like the self-esteem improve, seeing them like be appreciative that like someone actually cares about them, because like a lot of our kids have been like alienated from society in a way, you know, like they've never had somebody like reach out to them and like, you know, check on them and like engage with them the way that we do. um those are all you know, those all those things make the work worth it.
That's amazing. And I guess my final question, Mary, and then if there's anything else that I didn't touch on or you want to add, please let me know. What advice do you have for faith-based leaders, and spiritual leaders, churches, and people within the community? I guess in this case it would be specifically, well, not just, but Hamden, New Haven, but also just in general, like, what advice do you have for folks, maybe a few practical ways that they can actually get involved, like, so they may not be a VPP or credible messenger or a case manager, but what are some very practical ways that, folks can partner and collaborate with you all, to help you in your work?
So there's a couple ways. We're always looking for, like, collaboration with community members. We really feel like it really takes a village. We really need everybody in order to really accomplish what we want to accomplish, and like save the youth, and prevent youth from becoming at risk, or help kids that are high risk become low, a lower risk or no risk at all. In order to accomplish that, it's really like we need all hands on deck here. Like, everybody has something to contribute, we feel. You know I feel like the best way for faith-based leadership to get involved, is to become a panel member. I mean, we don't have any faith-based leadership right now on the panel, but
And with the panel, are you talking about the Juvenile Review Board
yes,
panel?
yes. So, we require like a training in restorative justice, but beyond that, we welcome anybody, and I think that would be like a great asset to our panel, to have faith-based leadership. And there's also, like, in terms of just the organization in general, there's multiple ways to volunteer and get involved. So anybody that's interested, from a faith-based organization, or faith-based leadership, or otherwise just being a community member, please reach out to us, and we will get you involved, one way or the other.
That's amazing. And Mary, do you know, do other states have like juvenile review boards?
Yes, I believe so. I believe it's like a national thing. I'm quite sure that they do, because I don't think, like, Connecticut wasn't, like, I don't think we were like the inventor of the JRP.
I got,
Like
I
to
got.
take credit for that. I'd like our state to take credit for it, but I don't think that it all started in Connecticut. Um, and I think it's kind of like, even since, in the 10 years that I've been doing this, I think they've been popping up everywhere. So check with your local JRB. You would make an excellent panel member. Yasmin.
Actually, no. I'm very interested. I'm gonna see if we have it in DC. Um, but thank you, Mary. Thank you so much. Is there, before we close, is there anything we didn't touch on, or anything you want to share or mention?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything. But thank you so much for having me. It's been like a real pleasure, chatting with you today, and also, previously. So thank you so much. And again, feel free to put my contact information down, and anyone interested in finding out more or getting involved can reach out to me.
Wonderful. And really quickly, Mary, what is the website for CTVIP?
I believe it's www.ctintervention.com. I'm
Got
pretty almost 100% sure that's it.
That's all right. But if folks Google, you can definitely Google Connecticut Violence Intervention. Did I say that correct?
Yeah,
Violence Intervention
got it.
Program.
Yep.
So website will pop up. They are also on social media. Also, Mary is tuning in from. It's at CT Intervention. They also have a Facebook page, so definitely tune in. Thank you so much, Mary. You're
Thank you
amazing.
so much. It's been a pleasure.
Stay encouraged. Thank you for everything you do. You're making such a big difference and impact, and this will not be the last time that we connect. And I don't think I've never been to Connecticut, so I'm gonna have to make my way up there to
You
see
gotta
you.
come visit us. You gotta come visit. Love to
I'm,
have
we're gonna make that happen.
you. Sounds good.
All right, my dear. Take care. Thank you so much. This was so amazing and inspiring and educational. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Okay, oh, everybody, that was so awesome. Mary was just phenomenal. It was just awesome to hear her personal. She has just a very powerful, inspiring story. Um, and how she ended up at CTVIP and the work that she does, also on and with the Juvenile Review Board. Definitely for you out there who are listening, community in your community, definitely check to see if you have a Juvenile Review Board, or chances are there's some type of restorative justice or youth justice organizations, advocacy organizations, or alternatives. Some may call it alternatives to the court experience. These kinds of things to see how you can get involved. I just appreciate you all for joining in on this conversation. Please like it. Please share. Please make sure to follow the Center for Public Justice on Instagram at Center Public Justice. And be on the lookout for information for our upcoming conversations. I'm so excited. Our next Transforming Juvenile Probation conversation will be with, let's see, the next one will be next Thursday, which is August the 4th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with Mr. Aquil Crooks. He is a supervisor of one of the juvenile review boards in Connecticut, and of YazzieSpeaks Street Safe Bridgeport. So he's in Bridgeport. And on Thursday, August the 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll be speaking with Miss Krista Lee Romero Smith. I'm so excited. Oh my goodness. You all are going to love. I mean, look, the folks that we're speaking with, it doesn't get any better than this. Like, these are folks who are directly impacted, boots on the ground. I mean, they are doing the work day in and day out. It's heavy work, but they're in it. They are in it for the long haul. They're in it to win it, and we want to just highlight their voices and their stories on this platform, and learn from them, and support them however we can. So yes, next Thursday, August 4th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, join me back here at Center Public Justice as I talk with Mr. Aquil Crooks of YazzieSpeaks Street Safe Bridgeport. And then the following Thursday, on August 11th at 1 p.m. with Miss Krista Lee Romero Smith. She is the training coordinator at Community Connections for Youth. Shout out to my friends at Community Connections for Youth, Reverend Austria and Belinda. You do not want to miss these conversations. I will see you next time. Again, my name is Yasmin Arrington, aka YazzieSpeaks. I am the Juvenile Justice Fellow at Center for Public Justice. I hope to see you next Thursday. Until then, stay well, be safe, take care, stay hydrated, and be blessed. Peace.